I was at John Hunter Hospital yesterday speaking to the emergency department there that had to deal with obviously an influx of trauma patients in the middle of the night on Sunday night. In the coming days, of course, we'll be speaking to affected communities and family members, and we need to make sure we're there for them. This is going to be a traumatic few weeks, perhaps even worse than the initial shock of learning of the disaster on Sunday night.
Yeah, a really tough day yesterday. You toured the crash site. How difficult was that?
Well, I was really struck with the professionalism and dedication of emergency service workers, the firefighters, the accident response team from New South Wales Police. I mean, it would surprise no one in New South Wales that those people were on site working hard on behalf of the state almost immediately. They were doing it with dedication and professionalism, but we need to make sure we're there for them in the coming weeks because obviously, notwithstanding the fact this might be part of your job, it doesn't happen every day, and this is one of the worst accidents the state has seen in decades.
Yeah, it is the worst bus crash in the state in something like 3 decades. We know local crisis support centres have been set up at Singleton and also in Braxton. What will they provide and what difference will they make?
Yeah, look, a couple of things about those two centres. Having spoken to Sue Moore, the Mayor of Singleton, and Jay Silval, the Mayor of Cessnock, there's two things about these communities which are really important. Firstly, they're very close-knit, so more often than not, they'll know people who are directly affected as a result of this crash, which is going to make it doubly hard for them to bounce back. On the other hand, because they're close-knit, they can come together and lean on each other in times like this. The New South Wales Government's job is to make sure we're providing the resources for the local councils. So you're right, the centre in Braxton, the centre in Singleton will be up and running as of 9 o'clock this morning. We'll have health officials there as well as trauma counsellors and anyone who needs to speak to someone who's a mental health professional, they'll be on site to help and give a hand in what is obviously a traumatic event, and the next few days will be difficult for those communities.
Yeah, how long will those extra support services be available for?
Yeah, look, open-ended at this point, but we'll speak to Sue and Jay about ensuring that those communities have got the resources they need. I am really focused on ensuring that once the immediate glare of this terrible, terrible tragedy moves on, that the government and the community is still there for those that need it. And the immediate responsibility is to help families that have lost a loved one, support our emergency service workers and heal those that are still in hospital. There's still 14 people that are in hospitals across the Hunter and in Sydney. We need to get them back on their feet as soon as possible.
How important is that once the media glare and the initial shock wears off and people move on from this, that the people who are directly affected and impacted, victims, families and friends, that local community of Singleton and Cessnock, that they continue to receive the support of your government?
Well, look, absolutely crucial. When the immediate glare has come off this particular tragedy, we need to make sure we're there for those townships and those communities. My heart goes out to the young couple that got married as well. I mean, they've done everything right. They've put on a bus to transport their guests from the site of the wedding to their accommodation so that no one would be tempted to drink and drive, and in fact no one would drink and drive. They've done everything right in this terrible, terrible tragedy, and the day that should be one of celebration and happiness is unprecedented devastation. So I feel very, very sad for that young couple, and I hope they can rebound after this event.
Police this morning said speed was a factor in the crash. Criminal charges have been laid, so you're probably limited in what you can say, but there are still, for you, unanswered questions about the circumstances of this crash?
Well, look, obviously, and I can't comment about the specific case that's before the courts, in fact, this afternoon. But I will say to the people of New South Wales, we will be in constant communication with New South Wales Police. If there's recommendations they make to us about law changes in relation to safety on buses or coaches or on in cars and vans in New South Wales, we'll of course take action. I want to make sure that those investigatory bodies have the time and space to conduct their inquiries and report back to the New South Wales Government, and we'll take action from there.
And what do you mean specifically by law changes? Are you talking about the use of seat belts? Were passengers meant to be wearing them?
I'm not going to comment specifically about the incident on Sunday night. It's important that the police have an opportunity to conduct their investigations. But if you're asking me more broadly about the wearing of seatbelts on coaches, it's really important that the message go out that if there are seatbelts on buses and coaches in New South Wales, you are legally responsible to wear them. You must wear them. It's the law in New South Wales that that's the case, and notwithstanding what's happened in the last 24 hours, that needs to be an unambiguous message to everyone in the state.
And whose responsibility is it to make sure that those seatbelts are being worn? Is it the individual passenger or is it the bus driver's responsibility?
Well, look, I'm not going to comment about the last 24 hours, but obviously those inquiries are ongoing. It's always the driver of the vehicle whose responsibility it is to ensure that there's enforcement with the law. And to reinforce the point, if there's seatbelts on a coach or a bus, you are legally required to wear them.
And what's your final message to the broader New South Wales community who's really feeling the effects of this crash? I think it took everyone by surprise and shock yesterday morning waking up to this news. So apart from the local communities involved, the broader New South Wales community, what's your message to them?
Well, Karina, I think the point here is that people woke up to devastating news from the Hunter Valley, an area that we normally associate with joy and happiness, a destination wedding in this case. And I think that the real trauma and hurt that people feel, the shock that people feel is completely understandable. I just want to tell the people of Greta, Cessnock and Singleton that we will be there for them, and the entire state, every single person in New South Wales sends their condolences to those communities. They'll be back on their feet, but it'll be very tough over the coming weeks.